about some of these projects, one of the most interesting things he told me about SEO was he said that when Google came out onto the scene, if you guys remember what happened, who the big wigs were, well, Google, what they did different than everybody else was they made sure that the results were really clean, that there was no broken links, and that's how they beat everybody out. And so from that day on, what their objective has been is how to tell you how they see you, right? So you guys have probably all used Webmaster Tools, or you probably advocate that. Well, what he explained was Webmaster Tools is Google trying to tell you how they see you so that you can do a better job, because that's how they make their money. And the thing that was really interesting, one of our clients is Insight Behavioral Health Centers, and they do eating disorders, right? So if you guys go to your analytics, I know with all of my clients, because I'm on every single of their analytics, what do you see as the top results? You see their company name, right? That's what everybody's searching for to get there. And you know what that is for SEO? That's driving directions, right? That's not SEO. Somebody already knows who you are. That's right, but that's not SEO at all. And so what he explained is that when you go to, so if you go to Webmaster Tools, that's Google trying to show you how they see you. And when you look at the terms, that's clearly showing you that most of the terms that people are finding them, they already know who you're about. And your job, what you're trying to do with SEO, is trying to get like eating disorder and eating recovery center. You're trying to get those up above those terms. So that was really interesting, because that's what you're trying. That's your objective, is to try to do those things. So that I thought that was a revelation for me in understanding that. And this was a client he helped work with. And to give you a good example, Insight, right? That's a big term that everybody searches for, but Insight has absolutely no value in an SEO situation, right? What does that mean? It means nothing. So like one of the ideas he had was like to change their Insight Behavioral Health Centers. He said, go through the site and change it, and everywhere you have Insight, change it to Insight BHC. So that way it becomes more of a specific term and not generalized against the word insight, which means nothing.
It's two words.
What's that?
It's 2 words. 4 words. 2 words. You went from 4 words to 2 words. Instant. You went from 4 terms to 2 terms.
Well, the problem is that insight by itself.
No, I know. I understand. It's a
Yes.
generic term.
It's a generic term.
But I'm just saying that adding, given the BHC.
No, if you put it together, Insight BHC, it becomes a unique term.
Google knows the difference between it. I'm just saying, it's just adding to it.
Okay, gotcha. All right. No problem. So when Sam would do these analysis for these companies, he broke it out into red, yellow, and green. And I'll show you some of I'll just give you a brief overview, and then I'll explain and I'll show you some of the things he walked us through. So when he did with this one client, he started out in red. And he said, here's the red things. You got to get your meta descriptions accurate, right? No problem. That makes sense. Duplicate content. This particular client was mif.elca.org. Now, what we didn't do correctly was we didn't use the www, right? And so both the sites www.mif.elca.org and without the www existed concurrently. And if you do a search, you can see those things. And he just pointed out you need to do a redirect from one of those. Maybe that makes sense to you. It was a mistake that we made, but Google sees those as duplicate content. And just little details of that is a red flag. Native sitemap. Sitemaps make sense, but he says that's a top priority, having a sitemap and then having a link on the footer of every page to that sitemap for SEO purposes. XML sitemap, I'm sure you guys get that. Social media presence and social sharing buttons. It's just that Google's placing more emphasis on that, and with all the clients, he's looking to see that you're demonstrating that. Yellow tags, yellow areas, when he was analyzing this, he was saying these are the things that are not as hot as the red ones. Title tags, less than 70 characters. Your H1 tags, URL structure, using hyphens in your words. Site speed, as of April 2010, they're measuring site speed, so and there's a site tool that I'll show you. You can check that out. It was interesting. He talked about Wikipedia directory listings, including Wikipedia. Have you guys done any Wikipedia edits at all? He said it's pretty tough to do that because a core group of Wikipedia authors kind of control all that. I didn't realize that. I don't know if you realize that. Inbound link relevance, that probably makes sense, but he showed us some tools where you can search that and see what links are coming in. That's a big thing. From a green standpoint, now this was green in terms of the clients we were reviewing. Search-friendly navigation, right? It's not embedded in Flash or JavaScript. How old is your domain name? I don't know if you guys knew that, but the older domain names are going to come up sooner. Use of 302 redirects versus 301. I know you guys are going to be covering that. Some of the more technical, but that's temporary versus the permanent. Less than 150 links per page is something that Google looks at. All pages are linking to home, and mobile accessibility is becoming a big ranking factor.
What was your terminology for yellow, red, and green again?
So the three things, when he was doing this analysis, he was saying these are the most important that you have to do right now. That's the red. The yellow ones are some things you're going to work on over time, and green are everything is pretty not.
I ask one question. Why did you have title tag? Title is yellow.
I
mean, I said title, but the keywords in the title is all the most important thing you can do.
I think I would say that probably, I can't give you that answer because I would agree with you, and we spent a lot of time with him, with the client, on the title and H1 tag.
No,
the
meta content is what Google decided that they really want to see. The title, the page title, became irrelevant quite a few years ago. It's still always a good idea to do it. We did. I know this is kind of HTML tag.
Let me just kind of. So it's important, but it's not always important. It depends on how well they are doing already. But secondarily is on any search results.
So
have the title tag. That's actually going to show up.
So what you're talking about, I think, is a perfect segue to where I wanted to go with. So I don't know why it was yellow, to be honest with you, because we spent a lot of time with it, and I'll tell you for this reason. So what he explained is that the title tag is actually, and I thought it was the H1 tag. I thought the headline tag, personally, I thought that was the most important. But he said a lot of sites don't have H1 tags on their pages, and so Google puts their focus on the title tag, which is something you don't see. You don't see the title tag. And he said that's what Google's looking at. So I was surprised to hear that. So the other thing he did was that he said, and this was really interesting, especially from a Drupal standpoint, because Drupal has those nice little meta tag editors, is what he did with the client is, what he explained is that you can you write your content the way you want, the headlines that's important for your client, right? But in the title tag editor, what Google does, what it displays in the search results is the title tag and not the H1 tag. So the example I wanted to show you is, okay, so this one is called, this is this ANAD support group. So that's the name of the, it's like some kind of group for eating disorders, right? It's called ANAD, right? So that was the name of the page. So that's the context that's important for the user when they visit the page. But when he changed the title tag and not the headline tag, was to anorexia nervosa and associated disorder support group, right? The reason being is because that's what Google's going to find, and that's what Google's going to display when somebody does a search. So in the context of the site, it says ANAD, but when somebody's doing a search, they're not going to see ANAD, they're going to see anorexia nervosa, and you're going to get the search results. So this is where he was really fine-tuning and tweaking the title tag versus the headline tag, because most people don't see that title tag. And that's what they see in the search results.
When you say title tag, you mean the page title tag. Yes.
In Drupal, by default, whatever your headline is...
Not Drupal, I'm talking about HTML and the web.
Right.
Say title tag, it shows up in the search results as the first line, and the next two lines of the narrative description. Yes. That's what I'm talking about. And then when the page comes up, that title is in the top of the page. Yes, that title tag. That title tag is very important.
Right. Well, I might be misinterpreting what he said. That might be the case. But the point I'm making is that by default, in most content management systems, I'm assuming, similar to Drupal, is that whatever you type in as your headline is going to be your title tag. Whereas Drupal has overrides, and we spent a lot of time overriding the title tag to be more search engine friendly, where the headlines are more specific to the context of the site. Not by a large degree, but it was the fine-tuning and the tweaking that I found really interesting.
I can do that.
So then the other thing he was explaining was this: the title tag, 70 characters, is where Google cuts it off. And he was talking a lot about trying to make sure that your short description and your title tag was accurately described. And like you said, right, meta tags are not that important anymore. But yet the title tag and the short description, what people are going to see. And he kept hitting upon this, which I found really interesting, is everybody talks SEO, how to be found, but he was like, the human element. So for whatever reason, everything he said in terms of SEO was also, what does the person feel? What is the person? He was really still very market-driven, and he kept saying, those summaries are really important because when somebody does a search and they see those headlines, what are they reading? What is the short description that's supporting that? What are you doing from a marketing standpoint to support those results? And he was getting down to specifics. 150 characters is all you have, and that's what we added to our Drupal content management system. So as you're typing, it counts it and tells you when you're in the right mark, because people don't realize, and people like to write a lot of stuff. And as you know, with Drupal, you have that ability to the summaries for every page, and that's really critical. So I found that really interesting. You guys understand this was interesting. The client went and overwrote all the automated URLs, and he took out all the hyphens. And that was something that Google specifically is looking for, hyphens and understanding the context of the page. I thought that was interesting. This is that Pagespeed tool that you can do a search for. And it gives you, and the mobile is becoming a big factor in how you're ranking and how fast your speed is. And as I was talking to Jason, something I'm really interested in getting into is responsive images, because we don't do that yet, and that obviously is affecting the speed. This is that one on inbound links, and I don't know too much about this. I understand the basic concept, but he knows it to an extreme about how to measure how your inbound linking is working. So that's my story on SEO.
We're sticking to it.
What were you saying about hyphens?
By default, whatever you type, Drupal is going to put hyphens in your words and build your URL. And the client actually had gone through and eliminated those for some reason through the admin tool. And he had caught that in his analysis, and he pointed us to a page where Google is specifically looking for hyphens to help it identify the keywords out of the URLs.
Right, so you removed the hyphens?
The client did. The client removed the hyphens.
That was a bad idea, right?
That was a bad idea.
Okay.
That was a bad idea. Hyphens are good. Hyphens are good.
All right. As opposed to underscores.
Yes.
I believe I've heard underscores make for one long word and hyphens make for two words.
I'll take your authority on that. I did not hear that.
Underscores get hidden by the underline.
Right, right.
On that too.
Just from a visibility standpoint.
Right.
That's
But if anybody wants Sam's information, let me know. He's back at the high price SEO company, so.
Well,